Hello and welcome. This is going to be, it's going to be a next 72. I'm not sure if I'm going to switch over to doing that instead of the 48 or just for today, but I'm going to cover this as for today and this weekend, so September 18th to the 21st. Which, interestingly enough, is both 920 and 921 are portals in their own right, as is possibly 919. I'm not sure what they are specifically. I might do some later videos about it. If you've heard anything about them, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Either way, I'm definitely noticing amongst the collective a lot of this Pluto energy, which is revealing a lot of formerly hidden truths. It's definitely waking a lot of people up, which is part of what Pluto does. And with Neptune in Pisces right now, that's another great awakener, as is Uranus retrograde in Taurus, who is known as the Great Awakener. And with Jupiter just having gone direct, that expands upon all of that. And because Saturn is still retrograde, we're actually seeing almost like I wanted to say triplified, but that's not really a word. An increase in awakening because there are fewer limitations on it, and even though the attempts by like government and things like that on people that typically give in to the establishment in their beliefs, they're not able to. It's funny because communication is a little hard. They're not as easily able to communicate the safety or the fear that they used to, and so a lot of people are seeing through it, which is kind of interesting considering all the fires that we have. And also, I found it especially interesting. Somebody had shared an infographic of all the fires going on right now and adding up the number of fires in each state that has fires. Oh, I should have looked at how many states there were. But the number of fires in each state, when you add them up and reduce them to a number below 21, you get the number 15, which is the devil card, which is funny because when we typically think of a place that's full of fire and heat, right? Like we typically think of hell, right? And that can kind of be what it feels like, both literally and metaphorically. But it reduces to the number 6, which is the Lover's card. Now the devil and the Lover's card is Saturn and Mercury, and we're in Virgo season, so that Mercury influence makes sense, as does the Saturn influence, because we have 3 planets retrograde right now in Capricorn, including Saturn. And Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. And so there's a lot of karma at play. There's a lot of karmic lessons, and because of Pluto and Neptune, we're seeing a lot of revealing coming. And as I've been saying, like the influence of the Pisces full moon will continue to affect us, and that is part of what it's doing. It's it's revealing truths, and it's also kind of it's funny because amongst all the devil energy, all the smoke and mirrors, right? We're also learning more about love. And love in a spiritual sense, not just in, you know, not just in like a biological sense, or I don't know. It's more about like intimacy, kind of that, it's not just having a breathing body near you. It's, if the world was really ending, who would you want to be by your side, kind of thing. Anyways, I'm not going to make this too long because this is just a short 72-hour read, but let's see what the homophone cards have for us for all signs. And then I'm going to dive right into the singular signs because I keep trying to get to them, and every time I go to get to them, something gets in the way. So we still have some of that delayed energy, things getting in the way, and communication troubles, throat chakra healing. Interestingly enough, we got ring in reverse and hair. Oh, that's so funny. And the reverse of hair is in the rabbit, and I have been seeing a ton of rabbit energy lately, which also, with no irony, has to do with fertility and is related to the goddess Eostere. And you might be noticing what a friend and I have been calling Easter eggs, like from spirit and from other people, maybe even somebody that you are in separation with romantically, or maybe somebody who's recently freeing themselves from commitments. This ring could also be just there's a lot of quarantine breakups happening right now, especially for anyone that got into any sort of a dynamic just before quarantine started, or within, I want to say within a year to like 6 months to a year before quarantine started, because you, as much as you might think that you know somebody, within that amount of time, you really don't. And so a lot of people are really getting to know themselves and getting to know the quarantine partner that they picked for that. And well, we're seeing a lot of that energy start to really play out. And uh, well, I think as you learn over time, especially with spirituality, all things are connected. There's no coincidence in the fact that there are a lot of breakups happening right now, and also a lot of fires happening. And vice versa. There's no irony in the fact that a lot of fires would happen and a lot of sickness would happen if, and then that affects breakups. Likewise, the same thing with sickness. When we are disconnected from our bodies in oh, that's interesting. My brightness feature somehow got stuck on here. I'm not sure what that means, but somehow we may be learning to adjust between the light and the dark and learning to see the contrast. Isn't that a very interesting thing? Um, yeah, and I feel like to a large degree, most of society has been so stuck on mostly relationships for relationships' sake, like as a status symbol or as a way to try to avoid the fear of being alone and things like that. And that toxicity, and that includes friendships, romantic relationships, and jobs, but it creates such a toxicity that it would make sense that we would all be susceptible to getting sick, and that we would create an environment and contribute to an environment that is so, it just becomes like kindling, and then poof, all it takes is one match and it all goes, right? Um, and I do still feel like a lot of this, the smoke, and especially with the fog that often comes in when the rains come in and things like that, that contributes to kind of the the fogginess, the smoke and mirrors kind of thing, and you're starting to really see through it. It's actually in much in a similar way to smudging. It's kind of outing a lot of like inner demons and things like that. It's actually revealing a lot more than it's hiding. But for those of you that are feeling like your friends or your loved ones are kind of missing in action during that, just recognize that, kind of think of them like a moon during an eclipse or a mountain that's covered in clouds. It's still there. They are still there. They've not gone anywhere. They're just momentarily in the 3D. You're not connecting, and that's okay. And recognize also that you are the creator of your reality. And so if you sit there and get anxious and worry about what's going on with them, that's what you're manifesting, is more anxiety and more worry, when one, it's likely going to be okay anyways, even if you're anxious. So don't beat yourself up for that. But you can have a much more fun experience if you play around with intentionally imagining what great things that they're doing for themselves and for you and for others, and the learning they're going through, things like that, and imagining them imagining you in that same way. So, oftentimes when we are disconnected from our loved ones, it is to help us reconnect with ourselves and to learn more self-love, and to learn how to be happy when we're not in constant connection with the people that we usually use as our way of validating our experiences and feeling good. Now the hair one is very interesting. I do I do feel like, it's funny. I feel like the back of both of these cards is kind of relevant at this moment. So, ring, as in to wring out a towel. So, having those be in reverse, it's kind of like squeezing out the last few tears. Some of you may be dealing with some hard emotions, especially if you are dealing with breakup energy, or just, releasing final emotions. Others of you, it might be kind of an intentional wringing out, like an intentional squeezing of a situation to create a final ending. But the hair one is interesting. There, you might notice, wow, I get tingles on that one. You might notice a significance to do with hair. Maybe you'll be feeling more called to do up your hair. Maybe you recognize that your hair is very powerful. There are a lot of spiritual traditions that talk about the power of hair. Maybe you'll decide to get a haircut or keep your hair long, or maybe there's someone that calls your attention because of their hair, or maybe you're noticing the differences between the hair of different people. I feel like to a degree this is also splitting hairs. Like you might be around somebody who's splitting hairs and maybe even pretending. It's weird because I almost would have expected it to be reversed with the ring, so it's interesting. Um, I'm kind of getting the sense that for some of you that have been torn between which way to go, especially with hair in there, because rabbits and hares are often about listening, intuition, learning to pivot, and recognizing, being a prey animal. And so sometimes it's good to just go in and rest. And it's also about fertility and reproduction. So, and it's sometimes like, well, not sometimes, like when a woman is pregnant, it'll often affect her hair, especially if you take more folic acid. Your nails and your hair tend to grow a little thicker and a little nicer. So there might be some pregnancy vibes out there, or it might just be that you're feeling good in that way. If you identify as feminine, it might also be that you're just feeling good. That is kind of a feminine thing to do. And I think for some of you, it may be that you're going to be being noticed for your feminine attributes. And because she's wearing red and is a child, I'm going to say there's probably some more healing energy of childhood traumas, things like that. And if you identify as masculine, you may feel called to go towards somebody who is a healthy feminine, has a good connection with her inner child, and feels soft and kind and gentle, but could also run away, or kick you. I don't know. Definitely some root chakra stuff in there, and I find no irony in the fact that this ring is showing up as a blue color, because that's throat chakra, and often commitment is with that. It may be also that some of you were sensing a proposal coming over the next 72 hours that may be delayed. Or maybe you were expecting a breakup of someone that may not be communicated. Or maybe you're sensing that there is something like that happened that simply is not being communicated in there. And you know what? Yeah, I'm definitely getting the sense. I think that for a lot of you, either you're going through a breakup, you're sensing a breakup from somebody else, maybe somebody that you've been waiting on, or you're just noticing things that have to do with ending of commitments, ending of and maybe seeing, because of this Pluto Saturn energy, seeing a lot of karmic relationships ending, and the image of them being revealed as what they've always been and what you've probably known intuitively. But this hair one is about self-care. So while you may be sensing this or experiencing this or waiting on this, like whether you're in the middle of it or you're observing it or you're thinking about it, focus on self-care, which can be like combing your hair, or getting a mani-pedi, or driving around a lake, or going to some water, or, writing a gratitude list, stuff like that. So go for that. All right, I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter because my reading's been a little long. I did pre-shuffle before this, so let's see, Spirit, what's coming up for all of us in the next 72 hours? Give us a little insight. I'm getting the sense that some of you might be noticing little whispers. Like maybe you're getting in touch with your intuition, or maybe you're hearing the whispers of a loved one, or maybe you're learning amongst all the noise to listen to the little voice, your inner being, your heart. Maybe some are learning to actually identify what their heart wants and follow it. Interesting. First card that came out is Temperance reversed. A little bit of impatience. Interesting, the Star came out too. I'm going to sit with those. These have been wanting to be paired together for a little while, and interestingly enough, we have the Wheel of Fortune. I want to look in the rest of the deck before I interpret that Temperance and the Star. I feel like it's kind of waiting on a wish coming true. And because Temperance reverse can be, it can be no consensus sometimes. Some of you may not be sure if what you want wants you, or who you want wants you. Um, and you may be feeling more called to listen to music, or you may actually have an adverse reaction to listening to music, whereas before you may have felt really called to it. Six of Cups. That's in our hot topic position on top. So this is either at the forefront of your mind or their mind, or it's what's outwardly being talked about. This can be breakup energy, actually, especially leaving a lover who was maybe formerly an ex. And interestingly enough, we do have the X on that card. And we had this one in when I did yesterday. So we have some energy of this and this. So some reconciliations, some breakups. Feeling really called to that mitt again too. Some cooking. There's some theme of cooking, which could be. I do sense a large part of it is actual cooking, like with food, but for some of you it might also to do with spell work and like cooking up schemes, things like that. I think that either you may be talking about somebody who's been deceptive emotionally, or you may be hearing from someone who admits to being deceptive, or they talk about how upset they are about having been deceived, especially by somebody that they may have been in a relationship with and are now leaving. And I'm also getting really called. There's a theme that's been coming up, and I'm feeling like it relates to this in its own way, especially because if you look at them, like they're looking at each other, right? It's the eyes. I think that that's definitely a theme coming up for a lot of people. You can tell so much about a person by their eyes. And especially an interesting thing is like those who are able to kind of mask things with their eyes. It's funny, if you look, they're actually not. They usually have kind of a what's usually identified only as a psychopathic tendency to not have anything in their eyes. Like they're very empty if you look at them. And but with everyone else, you can tell what their intentions are. You can tell if they're really a good or a bad person. You can tell if they're, I don't even know how to quite put words to it. There's something in the eyes, and that will be a theme over the next 72 hours for sure. Not surprisingly, Queen of Swords in reverse in the heart of the matter. Karmics. Karmic energy, toxic femininity, somebody who is dangerous. Like this, and I mean, this could be you. Maybe you got to look at how you've been hurtful, especially with your words and your thoughts. Remember that thoughts hurt just as much as words. Just because you don't say an unkind word, if you think a lot of unkind things, it is just as powerful, sometimes more so. So, if this is you, really look at how you may be being very reactive lately. If this is not you, this could be somebody that you're thinking about a lot, or it could be that what if you're thinking about someone else, this is what they're thinking about. It doesn't have to be a feminine figure. This can be a masculine caught in toxic feminine energy. It happens a lot, actually, when we get into our toxic energy. Oftentimes we're actually taking on the energy of the opposite gender energy. It's very interesting. But this is the heart of the matter. likely, especially with this in reverse, can be cheating energy. It is likely that the hot topic is about someone who has cheated or been cheating, and somebody who is likely dangerous and dramatic and very gossipy, very chatty, um, very abusive of their power, and who is trying to prevent the truth from being known, and or in an attempt to like hurt you or hurt them before they get hurt. They're talking about outing the truth. There may be some of you that may be learning truths that you weren't prepared for, or that maybe you kind of knew of, but it was still kind of shocking to hear that this karmic energy is bringing to you in attempt to hurt you and either disconnect you from someone or just spin you out a little bit, which is interesting because having the Wheel of Fortune on the bottom is a spinning. Fortunately, fortunately, it's upright. So it's a good turning. And this is shadow work too. It's a good turning. I'm really feeling called. I haven't really ever noticed this before up here. We have a feminine angel up here with a book. And the book, it's interesting actually. If you look at the books in all of these, none of them have any writing on them. And I know books have kind of been a theme in the past day for me also. I don't know if that's going to be relevant for you guys, but it's definitely for me. So keep that in mind. Maybe there's some wisdoms or keys or things that are important for you to learn. But definitely a an angelic feminine figure will be prominent. It could actually be an ancestor, or it could be that is, maybe that's the counter energy to that uh, karmic feminine energy. But it feels like the wheel is turning in a positive direction for feminine figures who have been working on their spirituality and their healing, things like that, kind of divine feminine energy in there. So, yeah, you know what, with that, I think these two cards are really signifying. Actually, it's funny. I'm kind of getting the strong sense and even get some tingles on that temperance reversed in this instance is actually, especially with the star and both, like this one, especially being a feminine energy, this is more androgynous, but definitely with the feminine energy in there, I'm getting the sense that actually this is, like there's still a strong call to be patient, but actually there's going to be less need of patience, like and almost less of a temptation too, like if you've been experiencing a lot of like anxious attachment or anxiety towards some sort of a situation, like relationship or job or things like that, you might actually not feel that anxious about it. You might feel less tempted about it. um, Interesting. Definitely, I'm called to the foot in the water in there too. You might experience someone kind of dipping their toes in with you, if they're, maybe somebody returning to you. That Six of Cups reverse can also sometimes be a former lover returning. Um, but I'm getting the sense that one, it would be good for you, for those of you listening to this, feel called towards it, to bathe your feet in water. If you can, go to like a natural source, like a river or a creek or a stream or hot springs or something. But if not, a bucket is fine, bathtub is fine, things like that. But just sit and soak your feet. And maybe also, if you feel like dipping your toes in talking with someone else, that's good too. Music is definitely prominent in this. But I'm getting the feeling for some this is a continued wait for a wish. And for others, this is actually a wish revealing itself in the next 72 hours. It may not fully be manifested, but it's showing signs of it. And keep an eye out for actual stars appearing in your vicinity, on houses, on roads and graffiti, on YouTube, on Facebook, on things like that. I'm also getting the sense that in a global way, some of this is a lack of consensus between people communicating, and a wish for it. Like in fact, oh wow, okay, so a wish to be able to agree, a wish to be able to connect spiritually, and yeah, underneath that Wheel of Fortune, we got Five of Cups reversed. The Six of Pentacles. Ooh, goodness. I mean, that's good, really. The Three of Swords reversed. Endings of third-party situations. Rebalancing. There may even be a little bit of kink energy in there, like Dom subs type stuff. This is definitely reconciliation energy in there, though. But somebody who's hesitant to speak it, and especially towards an upright, a positive, grounded, likely earth sign feminine, but they're reflecting upon the past and the future and divine timing. Yeah, there's a bit more energy in here of like decreased communication and kind of some sadness. So if you're waiting to hear from somebody, especially somebody who may have been immature in your past, it's likely that they are going through a breakup, not just with an actual person or a karmic, but a breakup with their old former selves. They may be kind of trying to avoid healing a little bit too. They may be doing some drinking and things like that. There may be a fair amount of tearful energy in there, or that may be you. But just have faith. A lot of the star card is about faith, you know? Just keep the faith. All things are flowing, all things are moving. Oh wow, I've never noticed that before. Look at that. There's like a weird bird thing. I'm not even sure what kind of bird that looks like. It's almost like a weird version of a stork almost. And I'm definitely getting the sense that for some of you, you might be connecting with somebody